So I know what you may be initially thinking, but the thing is, the volcano is actually legitimately medical equipment. So this is why it says volcano medic on the side, because that's how it's sold. It's a licensed medical equipment by the clinic, because cannabis is prescribed by a doctor. You need to get it into your system fairly efficiently if you can. So something like this is quite efficient compared to the normal portable version. So it's quite easy. Once you've worked out the law and stuff, you get used to being assertive. So if somebody challenges you, just show them on the back, medical equipment, mate. Sorry, not interested, and just carry on about your day. I don't know if the clinic has run out of crossbow because I took all that. It did allow me to assassinate the managing director effectively, or via her career, which is clearly now over. But they're out, unfortunately, and have been for a while actually. So they've had to replace it with Bruce Banner, which does make you very large and very green, and does make you feel all the muscles in your back and give you plenty of energy to shell the city of Birmingham, to get rid of all the criminals. But the good thing is that because the Brummies were so stupid and slow after they attacked me, we've now got effectively a constituency office ready in Edinburgh to assist with dealing with matters here, with the local branch meeting coming soon. We can get that set up in assistance north of the border, and also we can deal with Brummies down south while investigations happen into Joanne Roney's quote-unquote anti-racist city. So I've no idea how much value would be wiped off the value of houses and pensions in an anti-racist city, given the anti-racists are aggressive race communists who attack people, and of course we're doing from 2020 to 2026. So this woman is going along with it. I did appreciate speaking to Helen in 2020 by telephone and agreeing to teach her course how to not be racist. And if we'd done that perhaps in 2020, Birmingham might have fared a bit better. But because of the ignorant feral psychopaths around me, we couldn't actually do that. So the counterweight handbook may be useful in terms of getting Birmingham City Council back into regulatory compliance, but we're all going to have a bit of a long road ahead of us to get anybody in that city to comply, since currently we've got various women in legal services hiding behind laptops and refusing to actually have a discussion via any kind of medium, effectively, or fetch representation or police. Because I mean, what's happening in Birmingham, for anybody who hasn't come across this before, we're in a regulatory compliance section, so we do housing administration of possession orders for the city council. So my job is to effectively to attack people. So I wake up £404 a time. I will attack someone I've never met, in many cases, never spoken to. But of course, the job is not to attack people, it's to make sure we're following compliance standards, pull cases back if they're not acceptable. But because of the way the department's being run, it wasn't acceptable, and that was interfering with the court process. You have to say something and do something about it. But the organisation is now short-circuiting because it is so corrupt that it has interfered with the legal process. And they're now, because people are going to be going to jail in many cases, including some of the senior leadership team, past and present, they're now, again, hiding behind computers and refusing to answer. Because I joined Restore when it was first coined effectively and have helped out with their campaigns, I've been doing quite a lot. So we went down to central London and met some of their senior people. My role at the moment is just doing as much as we can, and we're doing mainly sort of canvassing in Yarmouth and in Makerfield, or Wigan, as I prefer to think of it. But we've been around a fair bit, and people are sort of used to each other now, and you see the general faces. But I would be interested in having all interviewing the managing director regarding quote unquote anti-racism, because again, the current position in Birmingham is the managing director must be hiding at this point after her little stunt, because she was caught by me doing a sort of Potemkin village in Birmingham University, so she has a sort of theatre production, pretends that she's going to engage with the plebs and this kind of stuff. But amongst the plebs was one of her court officers, and if her court officer is saying to the managing director, "No, I'm sorry, you need to comply," and she's not complying, that's clearly the point where you have to actually stop putting possession orders through, because the housing stock is just not being run appropriately. You can't actually run an anti-racist housing stock. And before I was leaving the city, I had, again, adult men crying down the phone because of the levels of violence and predation, presumably in some of the properties. And again, given the sort of violence where I was in North Birmingham, previously a very affluent middle class area of Birmingham, and just the general atmosphere and tone of the city is just clearly not safe. But we're currently in Edinburgh. Having been in the chapel with Lucy Connolly was a great experience as well. So we went down to Neville Holt. So again, the great thing for Birmingham is I've gone through quite a lot of security to sit in a jazz concert with Sharon Davies and be in the chapel with Lucy Connolly and Toby Young and various other people. But Connolly's life and her treatment, of course, closely measures, in many ways, life and death in Shanghai. In the West, of course, Solzhenitsyn is revered for giving us an insight into how communist regimes work. So Cheng, being a female author, is more relational in her writing style. She's writing about herself, which you would argue is a lesser work. But it's an amazing book and does describe probably the way Connolly was treated effectively as a political prisoner by the state. Someone who's interested in communist revolutions, I mean, again, this is why you want someone like Stephen Kotkin in to look at Birmingham Labour's archives, because, 2020 was just communist revolution using the communications technology. Kristen Ayler and various activists were hijacking, saying, "Oh, this will never be the same again," etc., to set off their revolution. So the organisation is now run based on these activists who've gained access to corporate communications and will literally lock people out of meetings. So I'm in a compliance department. First of all is, sorry, who are you? And I'm being told what to do by activists. So this is one of the reasons we're getting out of the city until these people are dealt with by police ultimately. By the way, given the stuff, again, for the record, I've been sending into Birmingham since last year. I'm Pete North is he's obviously thinking about Birmingham City Council housing, or he must be reading my stuff somewhere. But yes, Pete North's stuff, recent stuff, we're out of time for a peaceful solution. Clearly is the case in Birmingham. If the managing director is announcing we're a quote unquote anti-racist city, then this could infer that she's announcing to give the city away, and I don't believe the British have allowed that or really allowed Birmingham Labour to do that. That's quite an extreme statement, really, so she'll need to clarify her statement based on critical race theory, because again, in a rent service compliance team in 2020, I was trying to teach my colleagues, but they turned out to be unteachable, I think. Again, Diane Jones, we tried to teach her via email. Matthew Morrison couldn't do it. After a point, you've kind of got to give up and just get out of the city, really. If you're going to be attacked in buildings or offices, or just going to be violently assaulted in various places, including by Birmingham City Council staff and senior managers, including the Jennifer Southall woman who, again, for the record, we've still had no contact from police. So if anybody can find this woman in Britain, please point her out to police, because this woman has repeatedly attacked me in offices, despite being a senior manager in a public body, and clearly not intellectually capable or honest enough to actually do the job. Pardon me. But return to more pleasant matters like Pete North's prognosis on the impending civil war and problems Britain is clearly going into under the clearly Orwellian, to put it mildly, or not to put it mildly, because Orwell, of course, prophesied Starmer, didn't he? But it's always darkest before the dawn, Pete. So there's no policy, the right aren't serious. We have a deportations hub, Pete. 54,000 properties is less than Low wants, and it's by an airport, and HS2 can take people to the Channel Tunnel, which you could blow up if you wanted to, Pete. we can get whatever demographics we like, Pete. We can withdraw from international cooperation treaties, whatever we like, because we're a sovereign country and we're an island and we've got nuclear weapons and nuclear power and oil in the sea. Yeah. So again, low ain't promising an easy time, which is why we're joining Pete and getting involved physically as well as using our brains. That's good. But brain plus body, talk to each other, get involved with local politics, local branches, bring it up all over the country. People getting involved. Some of those are quite sharp, and we can get it back, Pete. We don't have to be murdered every day. It's totally fine. It will be back to sensible and pleasant 80s, 90s maybe. But before it went mad, Pete, we'll get it back. We can be normal again and it won't be true the next election cycle either. So Starmer, of course, can't carry on. He's obviously totally mad. Everyone knows this is digital ID, or based on the children. Think of the children. Let's get ID to make sure no young people are using X, so we can track distance. But again, as pointed out, I mean, they can't deal with communications technology in the digital age. The people in Birmingham are sort of flailing around and refusing to call police, which again they must do by law at this point. You can't actually just attack people and unperson them. That's not actually illegal. So if people are in senior management have a responsibility towards basic health and safety, and they're attacking people in sort of a feral manner, then they're going to be going to prison. So I'll be pressing charges against people in Birmingham once the police actually turn up. But the police would have to actually been able to maintain order, given that you've got guys in Birmingham again promoting critical race theory based to people's children via the corporate communications technology after some of these atrocities. So Birmingham City Council has just become totally uncivilised. You can't deal with these kind of people, and given the level of aggression that comes back internally, it's some idiot will threaten you and then run away and flee. Then they'll threaten you. Someone else will threaten you and run away and flee. But because there's eventually no security, they're expecting you to stay in a building where you would be potentially stabbed to death. Again, we had to potentially look at private action to get dangerous people away from the property where they're expecting me to work. And again, physically in buildings, you would talk about security and they would laugh in your face and then leave, or again, people would attack you in building, this kind of stuff. But in Edinburgh, again, we're pretty dug in. So again, if the British are intelligent people again, so you reasonably infer that given that we've been invaded, you would draw to the north because you've got just the cold will keep people out. It's not just being dug in this place. We're really well prepared. So if anybody tries anything funny, they've got to be well motivated, or they're going to have a hell of a job getting at me. But it's the current problem is because Birmingham is refusing any kind of representation, so they're trying to deliberately isolate me from society effectively. We can't get any kind of legal proceedings started in Birmingham because they're desperately trying to avoid any kind of process or oversight or any kind of back and forth assistance. Again, they have to by law. You can't just attack people as a public body, or again leave them in buildings with a serious risk of violence. But the current position is, again for the record, they haven't called since last year. The only people who've actually tried, I think, are predators. So we made it clear in writing. The department was being run in a highly predatory manner for a number of years because they could get away with effectively attacking their staff in using the offices prior to the pandemic. You've got all these unqualified charlatans pretending to work and pretending to manage, but of course the managing. We'll say that for another day. But the summary position basically is because of the antics of the managing director. Just statements like that are going to incur a legal bill just logically, unless she clarifies it. And of course, as soon as she's forced to clarify it, obviously Lowe's grooming gangs report is going to feed into that. She's going to have to be asked about it. Again, the report comes out now, but we were saying to this woman last year, comply, right? And she'd rather just attack her own court officers, or let these effectively feral women. The leadership structure of the organisation was set up. So the sort of chain of apparatchiks would always come up. So the senior managers were all reliant on patronage networks. They would literally kilt it for money and say or do anything. The department then obviously was left to be felled, sort of run on a friends and family basis. You've got an absentee director who's incredibly weak and just couldn't deal with them, and thought that because of the calibre of staff was so low, I think he would get away with it. But because our directors just took no interest in the people who worked for the organisation. We were sort of cattle, effectively, to these people. They vastly underestimated the sort of people who were actually working for the local authority. And you had some really sharp guys kicking about that you could bounce stuff off, get stuff into corporate communications, do kind of clever database stuff. So when a forensic database investigator goes into the organisation and goes through this and creates a proper transcript and timeline and says, oh, right, it can be fairly obvious that you were publicly for several years. Again, it got to the point where you were just taking the piss out of them internally via this sort of corporate Yammer thing. So you could report to your colleagues that these people were totally illegitimate activists running about and abusing corporate communications, sending stuff into audit with directors copied in saying, I'm sorry, who is this guy? What's he doing here? And again, not responding. So when a grooming gangs inquiry does happen in Birmingham, and again, they're talking about potentially bringing back the death penalty to execute people who've done this, you are talking about Birmingham's directors, because you've got the HR guy going along with the gender stuff, which again is Lukács is the name I think you want it in Hungary, and of course we'll go into the day John Money and all these sort of people. So this was, of course, was highly dangerous, not to mention being inappropriate and unpleasant. But of course in 2020 his predecessor Craig Scriven was saying, well, CIPD guidance. Well, again, the British public bodies don't defer to CIPD, they defer to the law. So there are wider considerations which you may have wanted to run by the lawyer's office, not just allowing activists. But in the now here thinking about it, the Helen's book is quite good in terms of if you're not me, you want to try and have a professional conversation about this in the workplace in that kind of tone and intonation, and that's for that purpose. But the book I always want to recommend is Counter Wokecraft, which is currently in my car, a scuffed version of it, because it's basically a field manual and explained intellectually how to get these people out of organisations, how to identify them. You can then assess whether they're intelligent enough or useful enough to have a role in the bureaucracy. You know, these organisations, you do have people who sort of parrot stuff and don't get involved. These people are fine, but it's clearing out the activists, because again, Helen's work is tip top. They're just dangerous ignoramuses, and again, we can't have people abusing corporate communications of a British public body to attack British children. That is totally inappropriate, and the people involved in that are all going to be removed at some point. You know, they don't expect this kind of stuff because they're all dishonest. That someone like me would, you know, tear it all down because of a children's story, which never occurred to them that they can get away with this. But telling the truth, I'm afraid, is important, because it's how public bodies are run. So if senior members are behaving dishonestly and in public, it doesn't actually matter about your identity categories. This is serious misconduct and you're being removed. But when the serious misconduct could spill into further violence by Muslim gangs in the city, for obvious reasons, I'm getting physically away from the city, so the problems of the Ummah can be resolved internally in Birmingham before their court officers are physically safe to return to the city. If anyone, by the way, wants to buy a masonette, please give me a shout.